The Toronto Blue Jays have clinched a playoff spot, and not because of their own doing. They relied on the Seattle Mariners to go ahead and lose, and for a while there, it was looking like the Mariners were going to win out and the Blue Jays were going to suffer an ever so cruel fate, but that's not the case. The Mariners are out. The postseason teams are set in stone in the American League as well as the National League. However, the positioning is not quite determined yet, so I'll break that down and much more in this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. And in the most 2023 Jays fashion, they clinched a playoff spot, but not because they won a baseball game. It was because the Seattle Mariners, a team that has been a thorn in their sides for so long here, managed to finally lose a meaningful game against the Texas Rangers. And it was scary for a while there. I mean, the Rangers had a couple of opportunities early on in the game to go ahead and capitalize, and they didn't. And it was 0-0 through 2 innings, and we were all thinking to ourselves, here we go again. The Mariners are going to find a way to screw over the Blue Jays once again, but they didn't. The Rangers ultimately ended up winning 6-1. Their bullpen held it down, which is not something that we could say over the past couple of weeks here, but Nick, that was electric. It was electric stuff out of Texas, and I can't believe I'm rooting for that fan base, for that franchise, because there's a lot of bad blood between the two of us, but they did us a solid yesterday, and today's Blue Jay game does not matter. Kevin Gausman can pitch in game one of the wild card series, but we don't know who they're going to be playing as of yet.
Yeah, and like you said, kind of Blue Jays 2023 fashion that we made the playoffs on a day where we had one of the most heartbreaking losses of the season, at least up until the big night game. It was a big swing of emotions. Before we get into the video, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 8,500. Now, Peter, we have a lot to cover. It kind of changes everything, the fact that we won yesterday because, like you said, we get to rest Kevin Gausman today, but there's some also underlying things. Well, let's start with yesterday's game here and quickly go over it. You guys, I'm sure a lot of you don't really want to, relive this moment, but there's a few key things here, and obviously the hitting wasn't phenomenal. Darton Vershow has been unbelievable. We want to touch on the bullpen very, very quickly. John Schneider emptied his bullpen yesterday. Obviously, Ryu didn't do very well. He went 3 innings, gave up 7 hits and 2 runs. But we emptied the bullpen yesterday in hopes of winning the game and clinching a playoff spot. And if we would have had to use those same guys today, and they would have used Kevin Gausman. Hopefully, he would have given us some length, but they would have used leverage guys in back-to-back innings. And of course, there's an off day in between. But Peter, the big win by the Rangers yesterday not only allows Kevin Gausman to start game one, which, if assuming it is the Rays, he has not pitched against the Rays this season, which is a very, very good thing for us. It also means that we get to rest a lot of these bullpen arms, and specifically a couple other guys we'll get to in a minute. But huge, huge, huge that they won the game yesterday. And you could tell that the players wanted to win and did not want to use Kevin Gausman in game 162, because as good as Chris Bassett and Jose Barrios are, if you have to play a meaningful game, 2 days before your playoffs start, Gausman wouldn't have been available for the wild card game, and some fatigue would have definitely set in for some of those relievers.
Yeah, and I was encouraged yesterday because the guys that struggled on the mound are guys that are not going to be pitching in the postseason. Hyun-Jin Ryu, as great as he's been in his few starts there that he's had with the Jays this season, he's not going to make the wild card roster. Now, if the Jays advance beyond that point, I believe that he will have a role to
Yeah.
play. But all the other guys, I mean, Trevor Richards, there's a good chance that he's not on the postseason roster. Genesis Cabrera came in, got the job done. It was a little bit scary at times. Jordan Romano transitioned to an eighth inning role as opposed to being the closer, and he looked really comfortable there. So that's an encouraging sign. And Jordan Hicks, I know the underlying numbers don't look great there, but he got really unlucky.
Yeah.
And we also got to remember that if this was a postseason situation, there wouldn't have been a runner at second base, and he wouldn't have had to intentionally walk Josh Lowe, and his numbers wouldn't have been skewed like that. So he looked dominant. I mean, some of the swings that the Rays were putting up against Jordan Hicks were just non-competitive, and I think he is going to be the closer going forward for however many games the Jays have left in this season. Hopefully, they do go on a lengthy playoff run. But the fact that Jordan Romano came in the eighth inning, the fact that Eric Swanson had a shutdown inning after a couple of base runners, it was very encouraging to me. And everyone that needed to be good yesterday for the Jays was good, apart from maybe a couple of hitters as well. But yeah, the high leverage bullpen arms, those are the guys that you're going to lean heavily upon in the postseason. They look good. They look like they're ready to go, and they need a well deserved off day today. And like you said, it does change everything. The fact that Kevin Gausman can now pitch in game one and won't have to be sidelined until game three if the Jays even make it to that point, that's huge. I mean, he's the ace, and I know he hasn't pitched against Tampa Bay last year, but if we remember last season, he went ahead into the Trop and struck out 11 guys over 7 innings, and it was one of his more dominant outings of the year. So he can shut them down, and he can go toe to toe with any of the top end starters in the game today. And I'm just confident. I saw a great swing out of Kevin Biggio that nearly walked it off. He just got unlucky and hit it right to low. They had some base runners. They had some traffic. They put up some decent at bats against some high leverage arms of the Rays. Now, I still want them to get wild card three. I still want them to play Minnesota in that first series, but you can't get picky at this point. You're in the postseason. You play who you play, and the Jays showed that they can go toe to toe with Tampa Bay. They're 6-6 on the season.
Yeah, and not only that, there's sure a big mental thing as well about if, resting the guys and not having to play that final game of the season where you're literally playing for your spot, because if you're unaware, every single MLB game today would have been it is at the same time, but it would have mattered for the Jays because they would have been, they couldn't rest their guys because the Mariners played earlier or played later, whatever it is. They would have had to go all out. And like you said, and let's not forget, Kevin Gausman had a dominant, playoff performance last year against the Mariners. He's a great playoff pitcher. And overall, he's just someone we needed to, start Walker game one. Because even if he, started today's game and we won and made it into the playoffs, there still would have been a bit of bitterness knowing that Kevin Gausman wasn't starting the game one here. Now let's go over some of these wildcard game scenarios. Shout out to Dan Shulman for tweeting this out. It's a little bit confusing, but today's game does matter in the grand scheme of things in a funny way, as if ideally, depending on what kind of fan you are, if you want to play the Rays, then you want them to win. If you want them to play the Twins, you want them to most likely lose. So feel free to pause this and go through these scenarios yourself. But Peter, essentially, there's a couple of ways that we play the Twins. One of them is if the Rangers and Astros win and we lose, that means we're wild card three, we play the Twins. The other one is if we win, Houston wins, and the Rangers lose. And then the final one is that if the Rangers lose, Texas wins, and we lose. So feel free to pause and go over that. I'm not going to go over everything at once. It's a bit confusing. The point is, what do you want to do, Peter? Do you want to play the Twins, or do you want to ideally play the Rangers? Or the Rays, sorry.
Look, I think you got to play to win today as well. I don't expect that the Jays are going to field a strong lineup in today's game, but you also don't want to get battered and bruised going into the playoffs either. It's not good for the mental. I think Cam Eden's probably going to get a start today. I think Espinal's going to get a start. Davis Schneider, all the guys that haven't been in the lineup as of late are all going to get a chance to go out there and maybe show one final time why they should be on the postseason roster. So I don't think the Jays are going to play any of their top guns, or if they do, maybe they're going to play for a couple of innings and just get them an at-bat or two and then take them out of the game to avoid any injury. But yeah, I think the Jays within the game have to play to win, just like the Rays did in this series. They didn't necessarily field their best lineups all the time, but they tried to win, and they were playing strategic baseball because they're preparing for the postseason, and the Jays have to do the same. You got to get these guys used to a postseason environment. You got to get them used to postseason scenarios as well. So I think they're going to try to win today. Obviously, the ideal scenario is you see some positive things to build on going forward. You lose the game, the Houston Astros win, and then you go ahead and take that wild card three. You play Minnesota in the first round, and you avoid Baltimore, you avoid Tampa Bay altogether. But yeah, you got to play to win. Doesn't matter what the scenario is. But yeah, I want to see them tank for that third wild card spot, or tank in quotations. But yeah, they're going to play to win today. But ideal scenarios that we're playing the Twins on Tuesday.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a huge difference necessarily. The Twins are still a very, very good team. I think that side of the bracket's just a little bit easier, and playing at the Trop is the biggest thing. I think you can make a case, and I saw a couple tweeting this. If it would have been the Blue Jays hosting the Rays, I think you'd almost rather play the Rays at home versus the Twins because of their starting pitchers and things like that. But when you're looking at the grand scheme of things, the Trop is scary, the Rays are scary, Twins are very, very scary as well, but it's going to be a very, very scary thing overall. And Peter, any quick final thoughts on this before I show one more screenshot and we wrap up?
Yeah, and one thing that I want to say about the Jays is that no matter how up and down their season has been, no matter how many times that we've been pulled out and then roped back in by this team, things always seem to work itself out for whatever reason. I mean, the Jays lost yesterday. The Mariners were red hot. And then the Mariners end up losing, like a team that has been the biggest pain in the butt for the Blue Jays over the past couple of seasons, managed to lose a game and help out the Jays. So things have really aligned. The stars have aligned. And I wouldn't be shocked that if the Jays do manage to get into that wild card 3 spot and avoid the tougher side of the bracket, that they could go on a playoff run. Do I think they're going to win the wild card series? I'm going to be honest. I don't think so. I really don't. I still think I would give the edge to the other teams out there. But at the same time, anytime that we were ready to write this Jays team off, things end up working out and things end up happening that, that prolongs their season or that extends their window in a sense. So, yeah, I think they're the best team in the American League? No. But do I think they can go on a lengthy postseason run and the stars align and they get some magic out of some guys? Yes, I do believe it. I think the AL is wide open. It doesn't matter what side of the bracket that they're on. There's no clear-cut favorite. I mean, the Orioles don't even have Felix Bautista anymore. He's out. He's got
next
Tommy
season as
John.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, and next season as well. But yeah, if we're focusing on the here and now, he's out, and that's one of their bigger pieces. That's probably their best player this season. It's been Felix Bautista, so that's a huge loss. Even though they're a 100-win team, I don't think they're the favorite in the AL. Texas has been up and down. Houston has been up and down. Tampa Bay has a ton of injuries. I mean, I'd say right now the favorite is probably Houston, but even then, they're a slight favorite. So the Jays have as good a chance of anybody in the American League. You worry about the NL and you worry about the Braves if you do manage to get to that point. But yeah, the Jays have as good a chance as anybody, and I'm just excited that we're going to see some postseason baseball. Already called in to work on Wednesday, so I can go ahead and watch Game 2.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think if any team was gonna, any Jays team was gonna go far, it's definitely this one since 2016. And I'm gonna go on the opposite side of you. I think they're gonna win the wild card series. I think they're gonna do it in convincing fashion, right. And I hope I'm right too, because I'm just gonna throw that out there and pray. And one quick final thing: this is tweeted by Ben Nicholson Smith. In case, kind of just a summary at the end here. The Rangers win yesterday was so big. Save Gausman, rest Kirk, rest Vladimir Belt. Belt's been a guy who's also had some nagging injuries, so it couldn't have worked out better, besides maybe if we won yesterday and celebrated on our home field. But that doesn't matter. A win's a win, or a loss is a loss in this case. But we'll have a video for you guys, previewing the series a little bit tomorrow, as well as discussing the big roster moves that do go down, because there's bound to be some crazy news tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for watching, and hopefully the Jays can win or lose, depending on what kind of side of the fence you're on. So see you tomorrow.
Thanks.